Hello everyone, and welcome to this walkthrough in which I will explain how to go about marking part 4 of the Reading Use of English paper as part of the CPE exam, Cambridge Proficiency. I'm making this video because I want to make sure that you are giving yourself the correct number of points for part 4, otherwise known as keyword transformations. But first, before we look at the marking, let's just look at some strategies for doing this part of the test. There will be 6 questions or 6 sentences where you have to fill in the blank. And my advice is to read the sentence carefully first for meaning. Then look at the key word given and think about whether you recognize it as part of a grammatical pattern. Maybe it's a phrase or an idiom. Never change that key word. Very often you do have to change the form of the word and of some of the words in the sentence. So you might have to change adjectives to nouns, but you will never change the key word. I'll show you in a moment. Consider whether you need to add a new dependent preposition or use a different one from that given in the prompt sentence. It may also mean that you need to use the progressive form of the verb rather than the infinitive. Basically, they may ask you to change some of the grammar, but you'll never change the key word. Pay special attention to the verb form. As for example, if the progressive, the continuous form, that's the ing form, is used in the prompt sentence, you are likely to need that same form in the rewritten sentence as well. And remember to complete the second sentence using no more than 3 to 8 words, and do not change or leave out any important information. Well, let's look at some examples and go about marking this part of the paper. So the prompt sentence, the original, reads, "My father said that the portrait did not look like him." This is the key word, resemblance. Now, the idea is that you have to rewrite this sentence using the word given, but you cannot change this word. All right. Now, what we know from experience and from another video that I made, basically this is all about synonyms and, well, it's also about grammar. But here the word resemblance is a synonym for did not look like him. So what we know is that it did not look like him. It did not bear any resemblance. Now that's the phrase that we use in English. With resemblance, the verb that goes with it is to bear resemblance. Now, here we're looking at the past tense, so pay attention to the verb forms. My father said, did not. So we need to use past tense in the rewritten sentence. My father said that the portrait, and instead of bear resemblance, we need to use the past tense, bore no resemblance. And then the preposition use here is to him. You bear resemblance to someone. And what you notice is that the answer is always split in half. So there's basically 1 point here, and then another point here. So it might be possible that you got this part right. Perhaps you wrote, my father said that the portrait had no resemblance to him, or showed no resemblance to him. So you got half of it right. So when you're doing practice exercises, be sure to check the answer key and look for the split in the answer, because you may actually be getting 1 point out of 2 for your answer. Let's look at one more. The original sentence reads, the more experienced members of the expedition were made responsible for finding food. And the key word that we have to use is charge. Well, we can probably assume, we can figure that were made responsible for, in charge of. Again, these are synonyms. If you are made responsible, if you are responsible for something, you are in charge of something. So you figure that's going to be something we fill in the blank. We also pay close attention to the past tense. Were made responsible. So we know we're going to need to use past tense here. The more experienced members of the expedition were put in charge of finding food. So the preposition changes to be put in charge of something. So the answer, were put in charge of finding food. Now again, this part is worth 1 point, and this part is worth 1 point. So perhaps you got 1 out of 2 instead of 0 out of 2. Usually they break it in half. A grammar part, like you see in the previous example with the verb, and then the vocabulary or the synonym, or what's called the collocation. So again, I do hope this helps to raise some awareness as to how best to mark this so that you can be sure that you're getting the number of points that you should. Thanks for watching.